History is not a window into the past. It is a wall built by victors, cemented by power, and whitewashed by those who fear what lies beneath the foundation. We are told a specific story about the man from Nazareth, a story of a solitary divinity, a man who came, died, rose, and left behind nothing but a spirit and a church. But what if I told you that the most dangerous secret of Christianity isn't a doctrine? It isn't a ritual, it is a biological reality. What if the blood of Jesus still runs through the veins of people walking this earth today? Imagine a sacred lineage, a living, breathing legacy carefully protected for 2,000 years, yet surgically removed from the pages of history. This is not the gospel you hear in Sunday's sermons. This is the shadow gospel. The narrative that does not appear in the canon, not because it isn't true, but because it was too dangerous to be allowed to survive. The grandchildren of Jesus. They lived. They hid. They survived. But here is the question that should haunt you. How does a family hunted by empires and zealots survive for 2 millennia? They didn't do it alone. There was a protector, a figure erased so completely by the church that his very name feels like a ghost story. An invisible guardian whose sole mission was to ensure that the blood of the Lamb did not end at the cross. Why did the church delete him? Why was his existence treated as a viral threat to institutional faith? Today, we are going to pull the loose thread of history. We are going to open the forbidden archives. We will walk the path from the deserts of Judea to the mountains of southern France to find the truth that has been buried in silence. This is not just theology. It is an investigation into identity, destiny, and the ultimate covenant. To understand the silence, you must first understand the fear. For 2,000 years, Christianity has been shaped not merely by faith, but by political necessity. The early church, desperate to survive in the Roman Empire, needed a unified narrative. They needed a Christ who was fully divine, detached from earthly tethers, a Christ with a wife, a Christ with children, a Christ with heirs. This was a political nightmare. Why? Because an heir carries authority. If Jesus left a physical lineage, the Pope in Rome is just a placeholder. The bishops are merely administrators. The true power would reside in the blood, and power never shares its throne. So, the editing began. Councils gathered. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The Council of Carthage. They chose the texts that served the institution and burned the ones that served the truth. Whole gospels were incinerated. Manuscripts were sealed in jars and buried in the Egyptian desert. Names that should be etched in gold were torn out as if they had never breathed air. Have you ever wondered why the biblical narrative feels curated? Why certain details abruptly stop? Why do we know so little about the family of Jesus after the crucifixion? It is not an accident. It is a surgical removal. There are apocryphal writings, forgotten fragments, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Mary, and oral traditions preserved by the Coptic monks and the Desert Fathers that speak of a different reality. Te speak of a Desposyni, a Greek term meaning those of the master, a blood descent. This is not Dan Brown fiction. This is historical anomaly. We have records, clues, and geographical markers that point to a conductive thread connecting the 1st century to the medieval era, and perhaps to the modern day. Imagine the spiritual weight of this, knowing that God's promise of an eternal throne for David was not just a metaphor, but a biological fact. But every treasure needs a vault, and every lineage needs a guardian. According to rare documents found on the fringes of official history, there was a specific individual tasked with this impossible mission. A protector, someone close to the inner circle, someone whose name you won't find in the liturgy, but without whom the legacy of Christ would have been annihilated by the swords of Rome or the envy of the temple. The church erased him because he represented the plan B of God, the plan that did not require a Vatican. If you are listening to this, you are standing at the edge of the forbidden. Most people turn back here. They prefer the safety of the incomplete story. But if you are ready to see what lies in the dark, I need you to make a choice. Write in the comments below. I want the truth. This isn't just a comment. It is a declaration. It is you telling the algorithm and the universe that you refuse to be fed a sanitized history. Join the thousands of seekers in this community who are waking up. And do me a favor, click the like button. Not for vanity, but because it forces the system to show this video to others who are starving for this knowledge. Help us break the silence. Subscribe now, because once we start naming names, there is no going back. When we speak of the grandchildren of Jesus, the mind recoils. We have been conditioned to view Jesus through the lens of monastic celibacy, a lens polished centuries after his death. But let us look at the ocean of documents that the Church calls apocrypha, the hidden things. In the Gospel of Philip, discovered at Nag Hammadi, the text makes a distinction that is startling. It speaks of the Son of Man and the Son of the Son of Man. It speaks of marriage as a mystery greater than the world. And at the center of this storm stands Mary Magdalene. Forget the repentant prostitute. That was a lie invented by Pope Gregory the Great in 591 AD. To discredit her. In the Gnostic texts, Magdalene is the koinonosta, companion. The partner, the one whom Jesus kissed often on the mouth, a gesture in ancient Semitic culture that transferred spiritual authority and perhaps marked a marital bond. If there was a union, there was fruit. Legends from the south of France province. Languedoc tell of a boat that arrived without oars or sails. On board were Mary Magdalene, Lazarus, Martha, and a child. Sarah, the Egyptian, or perhaps a child whose name was protected by the code Saram, meaning princess in Hebrew. Why would they flee to France? Because Judea was a slaughterhouse after the crucifixion, and especially leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem in 78. The Romans hunted the royal line of David to extinction. They wanted no messianic claimants. This is where the protector enters. Historical logic dictates that a mother and child do not survive a manhunt alone. They need a shield. Deep in the archives of the Vatican, listed in indices but rarely seen, are references to the Testamentum Custodis. Testament of the Guardian, medieval Templar chronicles, hinted a figure who facilitated the escape, a brother of the Lord. Was it James the Just, or was it someone else? Someone who operated in the shadows. The tracks are scattered, but visible if you know how to look. In medieval Europe, noble families in the Pyrenees claimed descent from the sangreal, the royal blood. We know this today as the Holy Grail, but the Grail was never a cup. The cup is a womb. The vessel that holds the blood of Christ is the woman who bore his children. The protector erased by the Church was likely the architect of this survival. He was the spy master of the early faith. He established the safe houses. He forged the identities. He created the network that would later become the basis for the Priory of Sion myths and the Templar mysteries. Why erase him? Because to acknowledge the protector is to acknowledge there was something physical to protect. If the Church admits there was a guardian of the blood, they admit the blood exists. And if the blood exists, the Pope is not the vicar of Christ. The Femmies look at the symbols. The fish, the key, the closed rose. These were not just religious decorations. They were tradecraft. They were signs used by the Protector's network to signal safety to the fleeing heirs. The Protector was erased because he was the most effective threat to the centralization of power. He proved that the charisma of Jesus was not meant to be frozen in a statue, but lived out in a generation. But this is not just ancient history. This is a story about now. The Bible speaks of a remnant. In Isaiah, in Jeremiah, in Revelation. From the stump of Jesse a shoot will come forth. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. Isaiah 11:1. A root, a shoot, a branch. These are biological terms. If the Protector succeeded and the survival of these legends suggests he did then. The lineage did not die out in the 1st century. It branched, it hid. It integrated. What if the mission of the Protector didn't end with his death? What if the Order of the Guardian became a silent tradition, passed down through secret societies, through the Templars, through the Rosicrucians, and into the modern era? Consider the implications. We live in a time of unprecedented spiritual crises. Institutions are crumbling. The Vatican is plagued by scandal. The world is hungry for authenticity. What would happen if, in our lifetime, the ultimate proof was revealed? Not a chalice found in a well, but a genetic sequence, a family tree that withstood the fires of the Inquisition. It would be a spiritual earthquake. It would mean that God plays the long game, that while men built cathedrals of stone, God was building a cathedral of flesh and blood. The Church erased the Protector to maintain the illusion that they are the only path to God. But the existence of the grandchildren of Jesus proves that the divine is closer than we think. It is woven into the human genome. This lineage represents the ultimate modern parallel, just as the heirs had to hide from the empire. True spirituality today often has to hide from religious dogma. The truth is often persecuted before it is accepted. The Protector is the archetype of the true believer, the one who serves the truth, not for recognition, but for survival, the one who is willing to be erased so that the message can live. We have walked through the valley of the shadow of history. We have seen the faint footprints of the grandchildren and the ghostly outline of their Protector. We know why they were erased. Fear, control, power. But the erasure was not complete. Because you are hearing this now, the silence has been broken. The Damnatio Memoriae failed. But this investigation is far from over. We have identified the role of the Protector, but we have not yet spoken his name. There is a specific, disciple man present. At the Last Supper, a man to whom Jesus entrusted the keys of knowledge who fits this profile perfectly. A man whose gospel was banned. A man whose identity has been fractured and hidden behind other names in the Bible. In the next video, we will unmask him. We will reveal the identity of the secret guardian. And when you see who he is, you will understand why the Church was so terrified. But I cannot do this alone. The algorithm suppresses this content just as the Council suppressed the Gospels. I need you to be the modern guardian. If you are ready to carry this torch, write in the comments, "I pass the torch." Let this be your oath, that you will not let the truth die in silence. Share this video. Send it to someone who is asleep. Wake them up. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because the next revelation will rewrite everything you thought you knew about the 12 disciples. The lineage lives. The Protector watches, and the truth is finally waking up.